One thing I wanted to go over is just Zoom etiquette here. During the presentations, I hope everyone will use their raise the hand option. And I think it may not look the same as what I've shown here, but if we have time at the end of each presentation, we will entertain some oral questions. Otherwise, you may want to enter your questions in the chat, and we will capture that. And if we can't deal with them this evening, all of them, we will follow up after the meeting and get people paired up together perhaps so they can make contact with the speaker and get their answer made in detail. And also, if you can, rename yourself to your real name if you're using somebody else's Zoom, and also your local league. That'd be great. It's not mandatory, of course. And just as a reminder, if you maybe leave the room, just stop your video so somebody else doesn't wander in. And keep muted unless you need to talk. And if you are talking as a presenter and you can't seem to get unmuted, wave your hand and Cynthia will try to take care of that. Cynthia is serving as our tech for tonight, Cynthia Stewart. And she will record the meeting for people here that want to see it again, or people that said they can't make it tonight and would like to see it. If anyone is uncomfortable with that, please stop your video and you can change your name to anonymous or something else and we won't know you're here. Now, this program is really brought to you by the League of Women Voters of Washington's lobby team and their issue chairs for the environment. And they include Raelene Gold, who takes care of natural resources, forests, rivers, and water. Cynthia Stewart, who does transportation, which is of course important in the energy and climate area. And I do climate and energy. And we are guided by primarily one document, our program in action for the State League, and also the National League's Impact on Issues documents, which lay out the policies and positions that the League takes. And so all the work we do conforms as closely as possible to those two documents. We also have additional consultants we use, and they were previously on the lobby team as issue chairs. Phyllis Farrell, who's with us tonight, that was previously doing climate change, and she's working climate change at the US level right now, and doing many other things with the Thurston League, shorelines and other environmental issues. And then Ann Agard is an expert in shorelines. She can't be here tonight, but she also gives us advice and prepares some of the testimony that we deliver at the legislature, and does a lot of other things. And if you're not familiar, I suppose most of you are, if not all of you, with the State League's website, you can find the current issues and a lot more detail on those issues at the website under Advocacy, Current Issues, and Environment. And you can check all the other issues as well, Democracy, Education, and the others. And something else I wanted to go over, there is a hierarchy to how we execute action and advocacy. And we have to be careful with that when we're dealing with an issue that affects a wider area than just Washington State, several states, or the national policy. We should coordinate with the national office, League of Women Voters US, and that person primarily is Jessica Jones-Caparel. And the policy document that they use at the national level is Impact on Issues. If it's of entire state influence or scope, the issue chairs, who are appointed by the board of directors, decide on or do the preparation of of testimony to the legislature and letters to the legislature or other people within the state. So if any local league is doing a project that has statewide influence, please check with the issue chair so we can ensure that our board of directors is aware of what's going on. If the project is of local influence and scope, you need only make sure your advocacy director at your local area, your president and your board of directors in your local league are aware of what you're doing. And now let's share what each of the local leagues that we have tonight are doing in some environmental area. We are going to start with Mac Mitchell of King County, and give me a minute to open her presentation and get that started. Oh dear. Hang on. Well, here we go. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay, Mac, you're unmuted.
All right. Well, good evening, everybody. I'm coming in from West Seattle tonight, where we live. This is a storyline about a committee that started about 7 months ago based on some issues that we knew were occurring at the county level. So we saw that there were 3 county council members who wrote pretty ambitious climate proposals and published them in October of 2019. And Heather Kelly, who is the Vice President of Action Programs, picked up on that and began asking if they wanted feedback. And a small group of environmental people joined forces with Heather and sent the county very decent written input on this. And it is all about the Strategic Climate Action Plan, which is revised once every 5 years by King County. Last time it was published is 2015. Now it's 2020, time for a new publication. And these 3 council members, that was Dombowski, Colwells, and Balducci, went forward a year in advance to say we need to be more strategic and ambitious because we're not making the progress we thought we'd make. So I then picked up and we created the environmental committee, and with that started a whole series of new opportunities for people and a whole new way of probably interacting on environment. So I don't know why, but oh, there it goes. Okay, so this is the what I call the TED story. You know, one slide tells the whole story. This is the countywide CO2 reduction goals and performance, and it appears in a number of county documents. I think if you aren't familiar with it, it's pretty critical. It does show that the actual emissions that, which is the orange arrow at the top, are higher than any targets that have been set, and that we have not really reduced the emissions over the last 5 years, despite the fact that there was a lot of money spent and a lot of goodwill and a lot of fabulous pieces of work coming out of nonprofits and small groups that formed in various cities and towns in King County. So that is a lesson that we took seriously in the committee, and we began to take a look at what are the reasons. So the primary reason, of course, is growth, and we are growing faster than we can keep up with in emissions. But there are other reasons. So we began to ask the question, why change? And we then began to realize that the system that we were looking at, the King County system, was perfectly designed to produce the results that we're getting. And we also began to realize that we're not satisfied with the results. Most people aren't when they see that chart. And so the only conclusion we could reach was, how do we change the system so that we get the results we want? And we were pretty clear after we studied it that the change was going to be a process and structural change, and not necessarily a content change in regards to environmental issues. That we saw some flaws that we felt we could help with, I guess is what I should say. Okay, now this is not moving as it should.
And Mac, I'm sharing my screen, so.
Oh, okay, so you're moving it. Okay, so I'm ready to go.
Okay.
Okay, so why us now? We made the point, I wrote to the heads, Rachel Bombra, and the people who report to Dow Constantine on this issue. And we said, listen, we share the same geographic footprint, League of Women Voters, Seattle, King County. We have an experienced, nonpartisan approach. We share various cities and counties' urgencies to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. If you look at all the work that's been done by the League, it's pretty significant. And so we also argued that over the last 6 months, we've been training, as we began to train as what we call climate guides for each city council to support each city's locally determined climate priorities. And that's important, that we are defending cities' rights to be completely autonomous in this process. They take direction from no one, but we would like to be a guide in a few ways to them. And so these guides live in the city communities and are volunteering for the work. So why League of Women Voters? Always, because we have a long history of successfully promoting democracy in local governments and advancing sustainable climate change legislation every single year. If you look at the track record, King County invited all 39 city councils within its borders to work on strategic goals for climate change. And it attracted us as the Environmental Committee, newly formed. And we said we would like to ensure a very democratic set of processes in the cities, equitable processes where everyone gets benefits equally from the positives that are won, and a very systemic approach that we believe we can help you with. And right now, the approach out in the cities is not very systemic. A lot of cities are bouncing their own ball and not looking at what other cities are doing, but some cities are doing great work and it should be shared, but it's not necessarily getting shared. We're ready to work with them that way. So we have formed a network of the cities, and we organized them by district, but we then collapsed a couple districts together. And we don't, there are 39 cities, about, I don't know, 18 of them are very small, and we don't have members in them. But this is what we came up with. District 1, so you can see all the cities and the different people. We have a leader for each one. Marty's leading one. I'm leading the Seattle one since I live there. And District 6, we've got some strong performers there. League of Women Voters, actually, Kirkland has 3. In places like Hunts Point, it says no members. So we're not, in round 1, we're trying to get 20 of the medium and large size cities coupled with a League of Women Voter, kind of a climate guide, a person who knows something about environment and can help with the processes of democracy, equity, and systemic approaches. And that's what we are offering the cities. So we met with King County 3 times, gave input to the Strategic Climate Action Plan and the Climate Action Toolkit, which accompanies it. The action plan came out about 3 weeks ago, and it's published on their website. The toolkit is coming out September 24th, we're told, and we will be organizing to train on that and to make our approach into the cities. We have protocol letters of support from Melissa Weed and a sort of a statement about why we're doing it and what we're offering, that we're all kind of organized together to do. And this will happen in approximately 20 cities in round one. Because the 20 cities are responsible for at least 70% of the carbon emissions, we think that is the right way to start it. And we will then go into a round two much later and pick up some of these really teeny districts. So this is Alyssa Weed's recommendation to the city councils, that the climate guides can ensure your climate change results through democratic and equitable processes and systemic cross-sharing structures that are uniquely positioned to support your city. So we've talked to a couple cities and they are very interested in this. I've explained to them we're not trying to choose what exact strategies you go with. We're rather more interested in the process. Are lots of people involved? Is it equitable? Is it inclusive? Is it evidence-based? And is it systemic? So we're creating those kinds of questions and supports. And so we're ready for, you know, we're now getting ready to move into the cities and to take the training on the toolkit, which, by the way, we gave a lot of input to and have influenced pretty significantly. So we've become a strong partner with the county. We hope to be strong and supportive partners to the cities. Cities don't report to anyone but themselves. They don't report to the county or any of the strong nonprofits out there. They are independent and autonomous, and we would like to preserve that and strengthen how they deal with their public. The wider the public that they come in touch with this work and that we help them do, the stronger the votes for good legislation will be in Washington State. We believe that, and so that's part of why we're pursuing it.
Thank you, Mac.
Okay.
And are there any questions that didn't pop up already? Well, we can reconnoiter later. Our next
question,
Sure.
Marty.
Sure.
Yeah, thanks, Mac. I was just wondering if your climate plans, besides reducing greenhouse gas emissions, include sequestration strategies.
Well, those would be in the SCAP and in what that would be a process that the cities would choose. So all of that is possible, but we're not championing any particular set of strategies right now. Yeah, we're rather sticking, in the beginning at least, we need to develop credibility and a good rapport with the cities. And we're helping them really broaden their public and get the kind. We talked to some of them and they said they had a lot of technical recommendations, but the most of the public out there they're worried that the public that they serve don't understand what they're trying to do, that they haven't had a large part in it. There's always been a small committee in each city, and they are really smart people, I would say, as I look at what they've done and written beautiful plans. But unless the process is opened up to many more people so that they change human behaviors in the process. And once human behaviors change and people invest in it, then they vote for things that we would like to see them vote for. So that's,
thank you.
It's a little different than our usual approach. Yeah.
But Betsy Cooper has a question.
Okay, Betsy.
The only question I had was, I think you said that they had released a draft. I was curious if they had seemed to incorporate any of your comments that you've already made.
Oh, yes, definitely. We feel listened to, and we feel we haven't seen the exact final copy of the climate action toolkit, but they have, there's been a lot of documents and questions asked by and all of it has been written, and actually in talking to them, they have said, we have found your comments to be really useful in the toolkit, and we're structuring it in the practical ways that some of the members of your committee suggested. So,
great.
And they're also giving examples from other towns and cities, not just in Washington, but around the nation, who have done really remarkable things. And there'll just be a quick link every time you get close to something like that in the toolkit. And it opens up and shows them how practically it was done in Georgia or in California or someplace else, you know. So we think it'll be highly useful. We're pretty excited about it, actually.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks, Mac. We got to move on to the next one, and that's Sherry Dysart, who's going to talk about Mason County's work. And let me share that screen. And if I can, I'm going to do a full screen mode. So, okay, Sherry, just tell me when you want a slide advanced.
I will do that. Thank you, Marty. Thanks for driving the bus on that. Hi, I'm Sherry Dysart with the League of Women Voters, Mason County. I'm chair of our Climate Change Committee. I'd like to start with the land acknowledgement. So we acknowledge that Mason County is the traditional home of the Coast Salish peoples. We recognize the sovereign nations of the Tacoma-Pierce tribe, the people of the river, and the Squaxin tribe, the people of the water. We recognize and respect Indigenous peoples as traditional stewards of this land and the enduring relationships that exist between Indigenous peoples and their traditional territories. So next slide, please. So my presentation is organized around the framework of STP, situation, target, and plan. So the situation, the first 3 slides give you a small picture of the situation in Mason County, a glimpse of the environmental leanings of our elected officials at the state level. I used the Washington Conservation Voters Scorecard to illustrate my point. The scorecard ranks legislators on percentage basis on a total of 100 points. I would like to highlight the score of Senator Tim Sheldon. Senator Sheldon is the longest serving member of the Washington legislature, having been elected in 1990. His WCV lifetime score is 26. Please note as well his committee assignments, transportation, and environment, energy, and technology. The scorecard for 2019 to 2020 includes Senator Sheldon's voting record on several recent environmental issues. I thought you would be interested in the details, and so that's why I included this table. And this is one of the reasons I titled my report, Mason County, Tough Row to Hoe. Next page. Senator Sheldon mails an annual survey to all registered voters in the 35th Legislative District. Please note how he worded the first question on the survey last year. Not surprisingly, 82% of the respondents were opposed to a 57 cents per gallon increase in gas prices. I reached out to Senator Sheldon to ask him if he would cite his sources for this information, but he never responded. I decided I would juxtapose Senator Sheldon's recap of this survey with a quote from Alyssa Macy, CEO of Washington Environmental Council, and she was straight to the point. We do not get to take a year off of climate change. If we aren't working to solve this crisis year after year, We are losing the fight. The Senate cannot be the place where climate action goes to die. Next page, please. I included information about the survey's question, boosting Puget Sound hatchery production to save the orca. The results left me wondering about the number of people from the Suquamish and Squaxin tribes who responded, since only 38% of the respondents thought this was a high priority. That was a trigger for me. So what is the League of Women Voters Mason County response to these trigger issues? Next page. The target: magnify the voices concerned with the impact of climate change in Mason County. I've shown the mission statement of the League of Women Voters Mason County Climate Change Committee. In a nutshell, increase awareness of climate change and its projected impacts on our local economy, environment, and quality of life. The mission statement includes a bulleted list of action items, basically our marching orders. Next page, please. So the plan or solutions. Number 1, educate ourselves and our fellow citizens. And I've included a list of guest speakers that we've entertained over the last several months. I wanted to highlight a key victory. We are having Hillary Franz as our guest speaker tomorrow as our kickoff general membership meeting guest speaker. She will be speaking about the push to make Washington lands resilient in the face of climate change, investing in carbon sequestration, and clean energy with wind, solar, and geothermal infrastructure. And number 2, get factual, best available science information to citizens. Partner with local news media to bring these voices to the front burner. So a key victory was having a Shelton Mason County Journal reporter assigned to cover our meetings. And the paper published 2 articles relating to our meeting with Nick Manning from the Washington Physicians for Social Responsibility. And I just highlighted one of those articles. There were 2 consecutive editions detailing that meeting with Nick Manning. And the last page, thank you. Advertising, question mark, question mark. What is the best way to get pertinent facts to the general public? For example, how to prepare for or counter misleading information about the Clean Fuel Standards Bill. I would like to support our local newspaper with paid advertising that includes information about top priority environmental issues. It would support our paper and would be an avenue for pro-environment voices. Question mark is funding. There's absolutely $0 budgeted in the local league for this sort of advertising. There is advertising budgeted, but it's for things like the tri-brochure. So this is a brand new idea that I'm proposing for our league to entertain, and I don't have the answer for funding. A virtual town hall is in the works. With assistance from Climate Solutions, the plan is to hold a virtual town hall with 4 candidates from the 35th Legislative District. And just today, I received confirmation from the Hood Canal Salmon Enhancement Group that they would be a partner in this effort. And finally, build coalitions with like-minded organizations in Mason County. And so my key question and challenge is, how do we connect with the Suquamish and Squaxin tribes? My efforts to reach out have not been fruitful. So it's an ongoing work in progress and open to suggestions, help, all forms. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Sherry. Any comments for her right now?
Marty, Joel had a comment in the chat, which you may want to just give orally.
Yeah, Joel talked about requiring electric-only new construction in buildings, I think, along with banning LNG projects. It's going in Tacoma or proposed, and the Kalama plant, which I think is a methanol plant. And this would only require changing permits and such. Thurston County has spent $250,000 on the climate adaptation study and $300,000 on climate mitigation study for a total of more than $500,000 spent on studies. And now we've got to take some action. And banning frack gas, I think, yeah, frack gas is, I think, coming into the state probably in pipelines. The state, well, has done there's been no fracking done in this state as far as I know, and the legislature did, I think a couple of years ago, ban fracking for methane in the state. Anyway, Joel, did you want to say anything more about that? Or we have Phyllis too from Thurston County. I don't know if there's any comment on the climate adaptation study. Phyllis, you don't have to make a comment. It's just that.
I didn't have any more comments.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm going to be talking about the mitigation plan later on. So.
Okay, thanks again, Sherry. And let me see if I can get us on to the next presentation here. And now we have from Kitsap County, Betsy Cooper. And Betsy, take it away.
Okay, I'm not seeing anything on the screen at this point.
Oh, okay. You know why? Because I haven't shared. Let me see.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. Hi, I'm Betsy Cooper, and I had the pleasure of joining the League a few years ago, and it was at the point when the Kitsap League had chosen in their programming plan for that year that there should be a water quality committee, and that's like a big kind of task. There's lots of things involved in water quality, so. I had left doing water quality policy for King County, and I said, sure, I raised my hand. I said, I'll do that. But so we pulled about 9 people together, including Shelley, who's on this call. And we got together and kind of asked ourselves, well, what are we really talking about when we talk about water quality issues? And the things that were really kind of bubbling up were the question about water quality infrastructure, really, like where does your water come from? Where does your wastewater go? How is it treated? How is stormwater managed? So that was really we decided that would be the focus of our activity. And it seemed as though it was what we were really talking about was educating ourselves and others. So next slide, Marty. So we basically started deciding that we were going to go ahead and create a practical guide to Kitsap water. We wanted to educate ourselves about what these issues, and we wanted to educate others. So we spent about a year and a half learning about Kitsap water and about its infrastructure systems, and created this guide that you can find on the web. The next slide. It was, we felt that we needed to educate ourselves about what the sources of water were in Kitsap County, and how it was managed, how it was either well or not well being preserved and or cleaned for wastewater or stormwater. And we wanted to educate the public, and we wanted to highlight citizens' responsibilities to protect water. Next slide. So we took the approach in this guide that we basically wanted to make it a plain spoken guide with just basic questions and answers, and just wanted to, you used a lot of illustrations like this that you see in the slide to try to help people understand, okay, well, if you've got a sewer, what's your responsibilities? What are the county or city's responsibilities? So we were trying to be pretty simple. Next slide. And we basically did our education of ourselves by going to treatment plants, going to the Casad Dam and looking at the watershed for the city of Bremerton. We met with various agencies. And then as we were drafting the document, we worked with those agencies and shared our drafts with them so that they were comfortable that we were properly presenting the information. And in fact, the guide is on all the different agencies' websites that we worked with, the Public Health District, the Kitsap County Stormwater. So I think that was really a good achievement. Next slide. And so that was an intensive effort for about a year and a half. Since then, we've kind of slowed down and we haven't been meeting that frequently, but the issues that came up during that work, really highlighted, one of them that was highlighted was the basic question of where those sources of source waters are and how much water there is, and whether the modeling that indicates to the PUDs how much water they have to work with is good modeling. So we're continuing to follow the Kitsap PUD's calibration and modeling study. So we'll be meeting with them down the road to find out what they've found. We also were really interested in the topic that was brought up last year and brought up in the paper, actually, in the Seattle Times, about the question of transferring of water rights. The whole question of water rights is a much larger topic, but I think we're continuing to kind of watch what's happening with that. Since those articles, the legislature clearly got the message that, oh, we need to look at this. While they didn't pass any of the actual legislation that they were looking at, they did agree to have some task force looking at this issue. And so we intend to continue to follow that as well. So that's kind of the gist of our group and what we've done in the past and what we're continuing to do. So that's it. Quick one.
Phyllis, I see your hand.
Yeah, so does Kitsap have city municipal water systems, or are they all through the Kitsap County PUD other than private well ownership?
Actually, there's only one city, Bremerton, that has their own water system. They actually have a watershed and a dam and some wells, but otherwise it's Kitsap PUD is actually only providing water for a relatively discrete area. There are multiple small water districts around the county as well. And then actually the majority of people, other than Bremerton, get their water from wells. So it's really quite an interesting combination of sources.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And the one other thing, just to make the point, that one of the aha moments for many people is that, in other parts of the state, you're getting water from large rivers or river systems. Since we have no large river systems, we basically are all the water is coming from all groundwater except for Bremerton.
Okay, thank you, Betsy. And I'll try to get us on to the next item, which is, let's see, The Story of Water with Carol Hall from Clallam County. And I think you're here, are you not? Oh, maybe not.
Marty, there's no one with that name listed.
Oh, okay. I thought I saw her on. Okay, well, that's too bad. We will try to go on now. I think it's Thurston County Group, and this is a team presentation. And I'm not sure who's going to go first.
I'll start us out.
Okay.
Thank you. And so Paula and Phyllis and Esther, if you unmute. We have been working on 5 different projects, as you see here, over the last several years. And to start us out, our water study, Paula Holroyd will start.
But did you guys want to share your own screen, or I can put the slides?
You can go ahead and put the slides. Go to the next one.
Okay, Paula, you're up.
Okay, thank you. I haven't seen this for a while. Membership adopted for our water study 2 years ago, and we've been doing a lot of the research and gathering information in the community, including some water forums to share with our community so that they would already be tuned into what we're finding out, so that when we did come out with a report, that we would have some mutual understanding. This is a list of we've done 6 forums to do with the water quality and the water quantity, and helping people understand water for people and water for fish. Because if our streams are dry, we have no fish. And if we have no rain, we're mostly rely on rainwater for recharge for our groundwater system. And it was a very interesting presentation from Yelm as far as agriculture and water needs and what they're doing to mechanize to make sure that all of their water is used to the most efficient ways. Still continue to deal with stormwater runoff and the toxicity of it.
Paula, just 20 minutes, 20 seconds.
Okay. And we've gotten a lot of information from the 5 different RIAs in Thurston County. Okay.
Okay, next.
Okay, I'm Phyllis Farrell, and our league has been involved for the last 3 years in our Shoreline Master Program update. League members have been involved in stakeholder group meetings and planning commission meetings, as well as providing testimony at Board of County Commissioner meetings. We've been advocating for a net gain because the no net loss requirement of the Shoreline Management Act really isn't working. Our shoreline ecological function is deteriorating, as evidenced by our decline in forage fish and salmon and the endangered orcas. And one of the issues that we think is contributing to that is the expansion of industrial aquaculture, which has really grown in South Puget Sound in the last 20 years, since the Shoreline Management Act was enacted. You can see the picture there of all the plastic that's involved. We're advocating for protecting marine buffers. Some of the property owners want to lessen those buffers, which is crazy in terms of the threats of sea level rise, but we think it's important to protect marine buffers. We want a ban on chemical spraying in the public waters. We have to keep in mind, these are public waters that the aquaculture industry is using for private profit. We want to phase out these plastic PVC pipes and netting. You can see there are 44,000 of those tubes inserted per acre, with netting over that.
Seconds.
Okay, and we want to regulate hydraulic harvesting. Aquaculture is exempt from permits on that. If you and I were to try to build a dock or a bulkhead or whatever, we'd have to get a permit, but aquaculture does not. They've written the rules to benefit themselves, so that's what we're working on.
Next, in 2017, the Thurston County began its update of its comprehensive plan, and the league members were involved in the natural resource chapter, specifically ag and mineral lands. And we were able to make only minimal changes in the agriculture section, but so many people in the community said that they were really concerned about farmland loss in our area, that the county just now this week is starting an 18-month review of ag policies and programs that I think will be really helpful. And our county is losing agricultural land at almost twice the rate of the other counties on Puget Sound, on the east side of the Puget Sound. So it's very important. The county also needed to update its mineral lands, and we helped achieve some improvements in the proposed language there. And Phyllis is going to talk about a controversial comp plan amendment.
Okay, keeping in mind on mineral lands, Thurston County at the proposed draft has gone from 5,600 acres designated mineral lands to over 140,000. So the mining industry is really trying to make incursions into Thurston County. But one of the areas of the comp plan is lakeside industry requested for the county for a rezoning of a subsection of the comp plan. And that subsection has a prohibition on the manufacture of recycled asphalt in the Nisqually Valley because of water quality concerns. And so we've been providing testimony and writing letters, hoping to address this issue and protect that prohibition. Heavy pressure from the mining industry.
Next is Esther.
Hi.
Next slide.
Yeah, next.
Marty, next slide.
Oh, next slide.
Thank you.
Hi. The league was involved in opposing two large-scale developments, both of which have a long history of being tried to foist on the county and also of resistance to it. And so far, these two we managed to beat down to a standstill. The first one, it was Rocky Prairie, was a project from the Port of Tacoma that they wanted to take also an old a mine and munitions factory that's abutting some of the last unique prairie habitat, and they were going to put a transportation logistics center there that would have brought in a lot of truck traffic and basically made South Thurston County an extension of the Port of Tacoma. And by lobbying, the county commissioners were able to stop the rezone to allow that to happen. The Green Cove Park housing development, I was more intimately involved with. There's again an old gravel mine, abandoned gravel mine that had been also served as a log yard for Weyerhaeuser with logs that were sprayed with DDT, and it was also an illegal dump very close to the Port of Olympia, which was getting rid of its toxic waste during the Cascade Pole cleanup. So there was a lot of toxic waste dumped there, all illegally, no paper trail. And so and the city, you know, basically being very heavily pressured by the Chamber of Commerce and its members, that you know, the developer and the port, all members of the Chamber of Commerce, have a very undue influence in the city of Olympia. So they're looking to build houses, and they don't really, you know, they're looking the other way. So we were able, through a lot of public disclosure requests and just by persistence, you know, get people to we got the Department of Ecology to finally put that site on the suspected contaminated list. So now they have to go through a MOCTA process, a model toxic control, but they're still going to try to build there. So it's an ongoing effort. You have to be persistent and just insist that the county and the city follow the law. Thanks.
And last slide is Phyllis.
Yeah. Okay. Thurston County initiated by a group called the Thurston Climate Action Team, has pressured the area cities as Olympia, Tumwater, Lacey, and Yelm, I think, is part of that as well, to set some climate goals, aggressive climate goals, and all 4 jurisdictions did do that. 45% below 2015 baseline by 2030, and 85% below the 2015 baseline by 2050. So once they all agreed and committed to these goals, then they needed to develop a plan to reach those goals. They've hired, as was mentioned earlier, some consultants. They've done some studies, and they've developed an adaptation plan as well as a mitigation plan, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. There are 72 goals that have been identified, or actions, excuse me, 72 actions that all the jurisdictions need to commit to in its entirety if we're going to reach those goals. Those actions are in the areas of transportation. They're real specific goal actions for buildings, energy, trees, and agriculture. So we've been involved in participating surveys, attending meetings, providing testimony, and a number of us, all of the elected officials in all of these jurisdictions have been lobbied by a team of 2 to 3 people urging their commitment to this plan. So we're optimistic, but in terms of COVID and budget sorts of things, it's going to be an uphill haul. And we are promoting the idea that this is as big or bigger crisis as COVID. So they need to commit financially to it now because it's going to cost more later.
Okay, let's see. Is there another slide? Oh, okay. Excellent timing, Thurston. We had another comment from Joel Carlson, who suggested we try to limit our lawn watering. I'm all for that because I just have to mow it more. I don't, yeah, California, I guess, does have some bans. I don't know if we have any in Washington on lawn watering. But I know there was, now I can't remember, there was a bill in the legislature the last couple of years to, actually it was kind of a double negative. It was to ban homeowner associations from banning letting your lawn go brown and other thing, and putting in water resistant landscaping. Loretta, do you remember how that turned out? I can't remember. Was that passed? Anyway, I'm not sure it was No, I think it passed this last year. I think it passed. I don't have my cheat sheet with me, but actually I had one more question. It was on Paula's presentation. You had all these forums, I think. Paula, how was the attendance at those?
Unmute, Paul.
Yeah, I am. The attendance, the room that we were allowed only held 100 people, so I'm only allowed to say 100.
Okay, that's very good.
But we ran out of chairs.
Excellent. That's a
They
good.
were really well attended.
Yeah, that's a good answer. I like it. Okay. Finally, on our presentations from the, actually, this isn't so much a local league. This is Shelley Kneep on a shoreline study that is sponsored by the State League. And I will let Shelley describe this, and I will, am I sharing? Can you see the share? Excellent.
Yes.
Shelley.
Okay, yeah, that's just the cover, so you can move it already.
Okay.
I'm the chair of a committee formed at the state level to do a study at the 2019 convention. It was approved to do an update on protecting Washington State's shorelines. We formed a committee and listed there are all the members of the committee. If anybody else is interested, you're welcome. We're not quite halfway through, but we would love to have more people from Eastern Washington. We had one member, but she dropped off. After we formed the committee, the first thing we did was start scoping it. And that took a lot of time. As we people that are interested in the environment know, everything's connected to everything. So what are we going to do? I mean, we could do a 10-year study on shorelines. We narrowed it down to looking at the SMA, the Washington State Shoreline Management Act, which in fact next year will be its 50th anniversary since it was enacted, to see how it's working, to see if it needs any changes. And then what we do when we finish the study, which is an objective study, it will go to the league, to a reading commission, or reading committee, and there'll be positions taken based on our study. Next slide. This is just pictures of, there's all different types of shorelines: marine, lakes, creeks, wetlands. So virtually every county has some kind of shorelines that they regulate. The other difference in the SMA is that it's administered by both the state and the local governments. Not like GMA and zoning. The local governments have to have a plan. All the plans put together are the state plan. The state has to approve the plan. Local government approves permits, but ecology has to approve certain types of permits. So it's complicated. So just focusing on the SMA seems like it limited it, but it's still complicated. And Phyllis, we should have talked about what slides we're using. Another gooey duck, we have aquaculture, we have docks, we have decks, we have development on the shoreline, we have port districts, just so many different things to look at. Next slide. So once we finished scoping it, we decided we would start interviewing different stakeholders, so to speak, who are interested in the, or affected by the Shoreline Management Act. We did 2 long meetings with ecology staff. We educated ourselves a lot on the Shoreline Master Plan. And then we started our interviews. We developed 10 questions that were asking the interviewees all the same questions. It varies whether we get answers to all 10. We had one guy last week who pretty much talked nonstop for an hour and a half and didn't really address any specific question. But we talked to the regulators, we've talked to county planners, we've talked to city councilmen, we talked to a member of the Shoreline Hearings Board, we talked to Rachel Osborne, who is an expert on the public trust doctrine, a legal principle that forms the basis of the SMA. We've talked to a couple of environmental groups. We've talked to a bulkhead building company, a shellfish association representative. We talked to the Pacific Legal Foundation that litigates property rights. We talked to a port district manager, and we talked to one representative of the tribe, and the Mason County rep who mentioned getting the tribes involved. We've had the same problem. They don't want to talk to us, so I don't know why, but we were lucky to get a league member who's works for a tribe to talk to us. Next slide. So this is just a graphic of all the different issues and opinions, and although we are seeing some trends in answers, we are seeing some trends in what's working and what's not working. So we think we'll be able to maybe even do some quantitative analysis on this report. Next slide. And so then the next steps are to complete our interviews and analyze the results and try to identify trends. And then we plan on having a loop back to everyone we interviewed for additional questions or just to let them know what we're seeing. And then we start writing. We would welcome any suggestions on anyone you think we might want to talk to, anyone else who might be interested in attending some of our meetings. And that's all I have.
Okay, Shelley, I don't see any written questions or no hands raised. Does anybody want to pipe up with a question? And if not, oh, we do. Sherry Dysart. And
hi, Shelley. I just have a possibly a suggestion for someone that would be interested in joining this. Is a member of the Mason County's Climate Change Committee. He also works as advisor on the advisory committee, Mason County Planning for Shoreline Management. His name is Robert McLean, and I can send you his email information. So I just want to put that information into your mind.
Great.
Yeah, he's awesome. Yeah, super. Yeah.
We're having issues. Well, I wished we'd had more representation from Eastern Washington, but we found that it's not a big, they definitely have shorelines in Eastern Washington and rivers. A lot of that land's federally owned. People aren't affected as much, I think, in Eastern Washington as we are around Puget Sound. So, but everybody's welcome.
okay.
Ann Murphy has a question.
Oh, thank you. Ann.
Hi, Shelley. Great to see how this is going. I'm just wondering if you have a sense of the timeline when it might be ready to go to the local leagues for the consensus process.
Well, We were originally trying to get something wrapped up by the end of this year. It did state it was a 2-year process.
Oh, right.
We have done 13 interviews, and those are, we're not finding many more to do. So I think we'll spend the next few months starting to compile things, and hopefully within 6 months.
Okay, great. Thank you.
But no promises.
No, you all heard it here.
And everyone heard the second part, right? The caveat.
Yeah, it's a big project.
It's big, bigger than we expected.
All right. We do have, if I can get back to, am I sharing?
Yes, you are.
Excellent. Okay, Phyllis is serving, has served as our climate issue chair for a few years. She's moved up to working at the national level, and has joined a team at the U.S. For the U.S. climate team. So Phyllis, you want to talk about that a bit? Phyllis.
Phyllis, you muted?
Oh, thanks. Okay, thanks everyone. When I was doing state climate advocacy work, I was receiving frequently emails from the U.S. climate team, and I didn't really have the time to participate or get involved. So I'm anxious to learn more about what the League of Women Voters at the U.S. level is doing. In the 2020 convention, they highlighted climate efforts, and there was actually a movement to have climate change as a pillar, one of the pillars of our making democracy work. Those include voting rights, improving elections, campaign finance, money in politics, and redistricting. We already have 13 state leagues and 85 local leagues that are proposing climate change as their 5th pillar in their making democracy work process. And at that 2020 convention, they did declare the resolution that calls for an immediate wide-scale mobilization to address our climate emergency. So it's kind of all hands on deck about that. Let's see here. Hang on a sec, I'm trying to get back. Okay. Marty, I'm having trouble finding my, here we go. Trying to get it larger. Mine, for some reason, went really small. How can I do that, Marty?
Let me see, I'll try to reshare it. Here, I'm gonna try to reshare it here.
I've never had this happen before, but I've got about like a thumbnail of what the screen is, so I can't.
Is anybody else having that trouble?
No, but I accidentally did that by clicking on the view earlier.
Okay, okay. I've got gallery view now. Can I see the screen? Okay, yeah. There we go. So the U.S. climate team is to, advise on climate issues and link with the state and local leagues, a clearinghouse. They do have a toolkit in need of updating. I think they're going to be working on that. And then they track federal bills the league supports or opposes. The league does have a lobbying effort at the federal level. And they are going to be sending out a survey that they've asked us to forward to our local leagues and all for distribution on climate issues. So they do have a website for environmental issues. And I did stumble across last week a great website, which I cannot find again, that tracked all of the federal bills that they are tracking, whether they support or oppose. And so I'll try to find that and then get that to Ann Murphy for distribution.
Okay. Any questions for Phyllis right now? I have, there we go. All right, well, I will move on here.
Marty, Betsy Cooper has her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that. Betsy.
I was just curious, Phyllis, you mentioned the survey. Is that something that you're going to be sending out to the local leagues somehow? How is that going to work?
Well, I'll need to check probably with Ann Murphy and I'm drawing a blank on our president's name, how we want to do that. We want to get it out to all of the local units.
It's coming from the this working group, the U.S. working group, right, Phyllis?
Right.
And it's going to go to action chairs at the state level?
Right.
Okay. So
and then for distribution to the local league. So we want, you know, members guiding their priority setting goals.
So Phyllis, this is Ann. Can I ask you a question? Is this going to be then a response from general membership and or leagues as a league response, or both, or what?
My understanding is from they're after a wide participation, that it's to the general membership.
Oh, okay.
So, but I've been in one meeting where they said that that was being developed and would be forthcoming. So that's what I know.
So we'll clarify that for the board.
Right, and thank you, Phyllis, for picking that up. That was something I got involved in this spring, and it's kind of, they're doing exciting work.
Yes.
Okay, did I miss anybody else's hand up? All right, well, I will move on and grab the floor again. And I know practically everybody on this Zoom is probably filled up with things they're doing. Well, what I wanted to cover was what we call the lobby team has a lot of additional volunteer opportunities. In other words, the issue chairs, Raelene Gold, Cynthia Stewart, and myself to support the lobby team during the session, during the legislative session, and during other times. And these are some of the things that I have thought of and others have thought of that we could do small studies on, not formal studies, but actually at the top during the legislative session, we could use some people that could turn around a bill evaluation in a couple days, because it's a very fast process in the legislature. And we don't always have time to look into every interesting bill or every environmental bill that drops or is proposed in the legislature. And then, you know, another thing that I would value is we do have lobbyists who have a different take on things than we do necessarily, and we could use some help in just fact-checking their information, because they may have some correct information, they may have good ideas, but it's not always clear what is correct and what isn't. And we don't always have time to dive into those kind of things. Solid waste and recycling remains a problem. To find what the truth of that is, such as what is really recyclable and what isn't recyclable, and how we can improve our perspective on that. Ann Agard, for one, who's not with us here, but has been working with the League on environment for decades, said we should be monitoring the Growth Management Act a little bit better. And some of the local leagues are doing that, like the Thurston County is, I think. Then the State League has a climate action toolkit that was created, I don't know, about 5 years ago, I think, before I joined the league. I joined 3.5 years ago. But it, when you look at it, it is becoming out of date a little bit. And so we don't show that on the web page right now, but it could use an update, and that would be another project to look at. Was brought up also the Kalama methanol plant and the liquid natural gas plant in Tacoma, in Tacoma, and what should be our attitude towards those. And of course, we do have local leagues in those areas, so we have to be sensitive to the attitudes of the people there and the members in the local leagues. And then one other idea, we do have a lot of people interested in climate issues. Not all of them, of course, are on this Zoom. Who I invited to this Zoom are the people that are actually primarily doing projects, that have been doing projects, so they could share information. But there are more people that are interested. Right now, the way we would connect with them is with the legislative newsletter that comes out every week during the legislative session. But for the rest of the year, we don't do many updates. There may be some interest there, but we would need somebody to be the editor of that, because the people on the lobby team, the issue chairs, really don't have the time to do all these things. And then also is what you are interested in. And once again, I'm not necessarily talking to the people on this Zoom, but you may know other members who are looking for some way to get involved in, let's see, we got something in the chat, maybe I can't read it, why not? Anyway, you may know somebody who's interested in getting involved with climate and wants to do something, maybe not as big as an issue chair or not as big as leading one of these projects, but doing something smaller and getting their feet wet with it. And that's what I'm interested in with this slide. We'll be taking another crack at this at the action workshop that's coming up in December. And I hope most of you have been to one of those action workshops, but we will talk even more at length on these specific topics, such as transportation, energy, climate, forests and rivers and water. So I was going to try to get into some of that legislative issues here, but really we're kind of out of time. I would like to also open a discussion for your ideas and where we'd like to go with these caucuses. I know we don't want to do one every week, but we may want to do one more often than once a year. And the purpose is to have the people engaged with league work on environment share what they're doing, so others can reuse that work, because we may be doing things that others are interested in and can use that as a template. Yeah. There may be other ideas on how we should keep the engagement with the environment work going on here. And so unmute yourself or add something to the chat if you want to make a comment there. And
so Marty, Shelley has her hand up, and then there were two comments in the chat about waste reduction and use of plastics.
Okay, and for some reason, I can't get the chat open again.
Well, maybe just others can see that, but Shelley has her hand up.
Okay, Shelley.
So I was just thinking, I would vote for another caucus, but also I wonder if we could do kind of a listserv. I'm sure that there are people interested in these issues in every league, every local league, and maybe just a listserv of what's happening, things to watch, links to interesting things, and
right. And that's what I considered the newsletter of sorts. And I'd love to have somebody that would organize that for us. And that's a great idea. And I believe we have a system called Salsa that probably does that list of action for us. And
Is that what the voter services is?
Oh, that's okay. Anne's shaking her head no.
No, the voter services group just works through a group email through the state league. What Marty's talking about with Salsa is the platform that we send the legislative newsletter out on. There are all kinds of different platforms cropping up. Some of you are starting to talk about affinity groups, and that's just one way to connect. There are just various different ways to get together, and I don't know one from the next, but we can do discussion groups too that we've spent a number of times trying to get organized.
So Loretta was next, and then Phyllis, and then Matt.
Thank you.
Because our local county is starting to do this 18-month study of agricultural policies and programs that's consistent with the Growth Management Act as part of the comprehensive plan. I'm anxious to hear other counties that might have already gone through that kind of a process, a recent reevaluation of their policies and practices and programs related to agriculture.
Phyllis was next.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Marty, for organizing this. And I found it really invaluable to hear what other units, league units are doing. And I think it just, it kind of inspires me. And then what I think might be useful is to make sure that unit presidents are aware that we're doing this kind of thing, or so when they have, questions from members, we know from the action workshops that a lot of people show up at the environmental tables that those local presidents would know how to connect them with, a unit that's, say, working on ag, or someone that's doing a water study, or someone that's fighting local development. So I think if the unit presidents could have more awareness about the environmental work being done by local leagues, that might be have a snowball effect.
So Mac was next, and then Joan Smith has a comment.
So my question was just, I was wondering what the purpose of the state climate action toolkit is. Who uses it, and how useful is it to the various counties and cities and groups out there?
I could speak first about that. It seemed out of date to me, and we've taken it offline, and maybe not grossly out of date, but just enough to where it probably more current information could be had elsewhere. And that's always going to be the challenge of a web page.
Right.
That when you put links on it, sometimes they'll go stale or just go dead end. And so we probably want to think about how we, as you're implying, Mac, what is the usefulness of, what usefulness are we trying to create with yet another climate webpage? Maybe we put more emphasis on the U.S., the League of Women Voters U.S. climate webpage instead, and just let participate in that group to keep our voice in, keep our region in. Oregon is very active in that group as well. Mm-hmm. At any rate, that may be a better way to do it, is to have one place rather than have 50 different places. I'm not really sure about that. Right. I think King County also has a spot for climate on their webpage as well. I think, Mac, I can't remember now, I see so many. But So that, you know, want to review again, I think we would need to, if someone's willing to take up that torch, to run to ground what it is we'd be trying to do with that and get some support across the state, ideally, for that's what we're trying to do. You know, whether we need to do something within the state because we've got something going on here, or we try to piggyback on the US and just get our concerns and our voice in there. And I don't have a preconception on which way to go there. Other than I don't have the time myself right now to tackle that.
Right. Okay, thank you.
And when I was doing climate, you know, I ended up going to the University of Washington's Climate Impacts Group. They have the most up-to-date climate information, and NOAA, and sometimes it's best just to go to the academic sources, you know.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So Joan, do you want to talk about your forum?
Well, Phyllis might appreciate Dr. Richard Gammon because he's from the University of Washington, retired oceanographer, and he's done quite a bit of study on climate change over the years, and he's going to be our introductory speaker for the Climate Change Forum coming up on October 21st. And he'll be followed by Dr. Whitty, who's retired, the county public health executive here in Snohomish County. And speaking on health and going into then the Million Trees Project, which has, Forterra has pushed in King County, but also here in Snohomish County, and talking about how those trees will be distributed and probably asking for volunteers, which is something that they do at that time. But really would love to have you guys aboard. Registration will be through Eventbrite, and it'll start the 25th of September, which is our Natural Resources Committee meeting. And we'll meet, and then right after our meeting, the tickets will go on sale and registration will be possible. So please know you're all invited. We'd love to have you and come and learn some more about positive things that are going on throughout the counties.
Thank you.
Well, we're nearing the end of the hour and a half. Are there any last things we'd like to say?
Thank you, Marty.
Okay, and I will.
Very useful.
I will follow up with a few more, if not one more, communication. One thing I'll be asking all the presenters, is it okay if we post your slides somewhere where we can access them, at least post them for a short time? And because I certainly want to get permission from everybody before we do something like that. And then I will work on getting a survey, or maybe just ask for via email, since we don't have a really big group here, what each individual would like to do next, what they think the next best thing, whether we want to have these quarterly, do we want to focus more on a newsletter and a listserv approach, or a online forum, but get your ideas together. I'd also be interested in your ideas for people that want to volunteer to do a little bit of work with the issue chairs for the lobby team. And that's all for me. I thank you as well for committing some time from your Monday evening to this important work. It's obvious from the sky around here, we've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, amen.
Same to all of you. Take care. Keep working, everybody. Keep it up.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you all.
Thanks you all.
Cynthia Stewart for running the meeting for us.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Thank you all.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Thanks.
So Marty and I are going to debrief. The rest of you don't need to listen. Karen, are you still there? My goodness. I think she stepped away.
You could.
Oh, you did a good job. So
So
yeah.
did you. You picked up the baton when when I needed you to.
I waited and I thought, well, I don't think you've seen these people, so I hope I didn't offend you.
No. That's exactly what I wanted you to do.
Okay.
Because I'm flitting around trying to figure out what to do next, and then for some reason the chat screen kept disappearing on me,
Huh.
and I don't know. I had several. I tried to minimize the number of windows. So yeah, technically it went pretty well. Switching the presentations is a little bit of a juggling act, but it probably goes better than having other people trying to share their screen.
Definitely.
And I think I had some concerns about some of the presentations, but they handled it well. Some of them were pretty dense, and as far as text and such, but they handled it pretty well.
They did.
Nobody went even 2 minutes over time, so I was impressed. I feared there was going to be a lot of. We had some wiggle room. We had some slop in it.
I was surprised there weren't more questions for each other.
Yeah, and sometimes it's people are meeting somebody for the first time. Now that wasn't always, it's not the case everywhere, but I think someone like Snohomish